Land is also a factor that can affect the location of industrial facilities. You look at the picture on the left, this is a kind of a multi-story Ford assembly facilities in downtown Highland Park. So that's down the early 20th century. Nowadays, you can look at a Honda assembly plant in Swindon, UK. It's just a low-lying building, the campus-like structure, and like here, campus-like structure. So you really do not see a very cramped space and high building anymore. It's just like university campus. So that is what the contemporary industry require. They need a very large tracts of land. Those large tracts of land would be very expensive if you still want to find those land in a downtown locations, and therefore only in the suburbs or rural areas of foreign country that you could find such a cheap, large tracts of land. So land could be a very important decision in some circumstances. Now, energy and power. So some industry require a lot of energy, and so they need to be close to the source of a power station to avoid power loss during long distance transmission of power. Here on this slide, you can see two maps. This map, the map on this right lower right corner, you can see that this is the Tennessee Valley. So you may have heard TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority. This is a federal agency that was established in the 1930s as a part of a New Deal to bolster the employment from federal spending. And that's why they set up this federal level agency to build a lot of infrastructure in Tennessee Valley, to especially the water project, big dam, and to control the flood, to improve irrigation, also generate electric power. And on the right, on the left side, this is the Columbia River Basin in the Pacific Northwest. Columbia River is also a big river, and the federal government in the 1930s and 1940s also built a lot of big dams there to control the flood and generate hydroelectricity. Hydroelectricity, compared with coal-fired and oil-fired energy, tend to be cheaper. Therefore, these kind of cheaper energy that are available in Tennessee Valley, also Columbia River Valley, had attracted a lot of aluminum industry to the region, and also copper smelting industry, because those metal processing industry would require a lot of electricity, use electricity to raise the temperature of the ore to melt it down. So it requires a lot of electricity. So they need to be close to the site of cheap power. And that's why these sites have attracted a lot of aluminum and the copper industry to them. So that is an example of how energy, how power could be an important factor that determine the location of some industry. Now, transportation. And so far, we've been talking about how market become important factor, and how the energy, how raw material could become important factor in production. Many of those factors involve transportation. So transportation itself is also an important factor in determining the location of some industries. Now, when we talk about the transportation, we actually have different modes of transportation. We have trucking, we have railroad, we have air, also we have water transportation. Different modes of transportation tend to have a different cost structure. Look at this chart here. This chart illustrates the cost structure of highway transportation, railway transportation, and waterway transportation. So it's a road, rail, and maritime transportation. So for highway transportation, uh, the the initial cost is very low because trucking company seldom build their own road, and this is by trucks, and they run the road built by the government. Therefore, the initial cost is very low. But as soon as the trucks start moving on the road, the incremental cost increase very fast. This line is steeper, and because the drivers would need get hourly pay, and also the efficiency of trucks not as high as a train. A train can take many cars, but a truck can have a limited capacity to take many different containers. Therefore, the incremental cost is low, is higher. And so, with this kind of cost structure, let's compare with railway. Railway cost, the initial cost is higher because any railway industry, they need to build their railway facilities. They need to have their own, lay down their own rail tracks. And they also have their own kind of sorting facilities, the stations, they all cost a lot of money. Okay, so the initial cost is really not higher than the trucking industry. But the incremental cost is not as high because a train can add more train cars to increase efficiency, and that would spread the unit cost among many more train cars. That's why you can see the incremental cost is not as high as trucking. Waterway even more efficient. The initial cost is really high. You need to have invest huge amount of money to build port facilities. Very expensive. But if you use a very large size vehicles, the incremental cost is very low. A 30 uh, uh, tons of 300 tons of a vessel can shift a huge amount of material at a very low unit cost. And that is what causes this incremental cost is quite a bit low. And therefore, when you compare the cost structure among the different modes of transportation, you can really see that for trucks, you can have a lower cost by shipping short distance. For railway, you can have lowest cost by shipping medium distance. But for waterway, you can have a lowest cost by shipping longer distance. So that is what determines for different modes of transportation, they have a different advantage depending upon how far you intend to ship your product. This is a summary of some average numbers for private trucks and motor trucks. This average shipping distance. And for railway, it's longer than that, 500 miles. But for waterway, it's longer than both trucks and railways. But for air, it's even longer. So different modes of transportation involve their own advantage and disadvantage when it comes to determine what shape and how far you ship. In this context, we talk about how the transportation may affect the location of industry. Now, one concept here is break bulk point. A break bulk point is here at the port city. Now, the port city. The reason that this point is called break bulk point is that imagine that you have some industrial facilities that are located inland. Now, you need to have the material that come from overseas. Therefore, you buy material from overseas. Big vessel will take in the material from overseas. And when the big vessels stop at the port city to ship the material to the inland location, you first need to unload the material from the ship and then reload the material onto some train or vehicle to take inland. This process costs a lot of time and money. So that's why when people decide, what if I put my production facilities directly at this point, at this break of bulk point, so that that would save the effort to unload and reload. So what big vessel come in from overseas, I can directly unload material to the production facilities right at the port. So therefore, now this break of bulk point has an advantage to be a site of a production location. So this point is a break of bulk point. Break of bulk point could be a advantageous site for production facilities if any industry would need use a lot of materials that come from overseas. Now, let's talk about a very important concept called agglomeration economies. Agglomeration economies can be defined as benefit due to spatial concentration of economic activities. The reason that different facilities, when they cluster together spatially at one place, they can enjoy benefit is that different facilities, they have some common demand from a local market. For example, all the facilities that are located within one city, they all need to use water, utility, and electricity. Where they get this service? These services tend to be provided by local government or local production facilities. So if those industrial facilities clusters in a local area, they can share the resources that are produced by other industries. Let me give you an example to illustrate the source of agglomeration economies. Let's say the city of Edwardsville have 10 restaurants. All the 10 restaurants serve fish dishes. Therefore, all the 10 restaurants had to send out people to big market in Chicago or St. Louis looking for fish at the input material, spending human power, spending money. Now, what if we have a wholesale company who come to this wholesale company come to Edwardsville and he discover that the common demand from these 10 restaurants are actually big enough to justify a fish wholesale business. Now, if they set up this fish wholesale business, they go around to look fish and they bring fish back to Edwardsville and sell the fish to the 10 restaurants within Edwardsville. Now, the 10 restaurants will have the benefit of not having to send out their own people to look for fish and save time, save money. As long as the wholesale price is lower than the cost where the restaurant has spent on their own to look for fish, that really worthwhile. So the common demand from different companies that are in the same place will be large enough to justify some other businesses. That this is one example of agglomeration economies. In addition, when you come to located in one big cities, you have all kinds of labor force available with people of different skills. So the company does not really have to train his own workers specifically. He just take the workers from local market, and then we have the ready usable skill for the company. So that's really also when a company come to local market, it can have all kind of information from the local companies. From those information, the industry can get a sense of what is in demand, what is in fashion, so they can adjust their production. And that really facilitates the fact that large cities tend to be a very attractive location for industries, because in large cities they tend to have all kind of labor forces, have laborers that have all different skills They also can have all many other industries that meet the needs of any other industries, and also in large places they also have a better utility services, the government services. So that's what make large cities more attractive locations for industrial activities.